Porcelain, Peril. Chapter 1. Natalie sat alone at the long dining room table, colorful paper hats and noisy makers strewn about from the recent birthday celebration. She was now 8 years old, though her sadness made her feel much older. Her mother cleared plates stacked with half-eaten cake, while her father collapsed the folding chairs and carried them to the closet. Natalie cradled the antique porcelain doll she had just unwrapped, a gift from Grandma. The doll was named Clara, Grandma had explained. Her painted face held an unsettling, too wide smile above a ruffled lace collar. Natalie ran her small fingers over the smooth porcelain, and immaculate curls painted onto Clara's carved hair. She had always wanted a doll that could be her friend, and now this exquisitely detailed antique was hers. "Thank you for Clara, Grandma," Natalie said politely. "She's very pretty." "You're quite welcome, dear," Grandma replied. "I saw her in the window of that little antique shop down the street from my house, and knew you must have her. 8 is the perfect age for porcelain dolls." Natalie nodded silently, but her heart swelled with hope that Clara could be the friend she yearned for. The other girls at school never played with her at recess. Whispers and stifled giggles followed Natalie through the hallways. Sleepovers and parties never included her. But now, she had Clara. That night, Natalie tucked Clara into bed beside her. She imagined whispering secrets to the doll, adventures they would share walking to the park, tea parties where Clara could be her honored guest. As she drifted to sleep, Natalie wrapped one arm around the doll, breathing in the faint antique scent of Clara's porcelain skin. Chapter 2. Over the next few days, Natalie carried Clara everywhere. She propped the doll in a chair at the kitchen table, carefully belted her into the swing seat on Natalie's bike, and read to her every night before bed. The doll's presence comforted Natalie, made her feel like she finally had a friend. One evening, as twilight fell over the neighborhood outside Natalie's bedroom window, she changed into pajamas and tucked herself and Clara beneath the covers. She turned off the bedside lamp and snuggled down into her pillow, ready for sleep after a long day at school. "Good night, Clara," she whispered. "You're my best friend." As Natalie drifted off, she thought she heard the faintest reply. "Good night, Natalie." The next morning, Natalie woke with a start. Had Clara really spoken to her? She must have imagined it, a trick of the sleepy mind. Porcelain dolls couldn't talk. Natalie dressed for school and headed downstairs, eager to begin another day with her new friend. That night, Natalie and Clara sat together on the living room floor building a Lego house. Natalie's mother looked up from her book on the couch. "Almost time for bed," she reminded them. "Say goodnight to Clara and get ready." Natalie pulled on pajamas and snuggled under the covers with Clara. As she drifted off with the doll's little body cradled in her arms, that lifelike voice came again. "Good night, Natalie, sweet dreams." This time Natalie was sure she had heard it. A thrill rushed through her at the thought she might really have a magical new friend after all. Chapter 3. In the following days, Natalie noticed more peculiar events that convinced her Clara was special. The doll's painted eyes seemed to follow Natalie around the room. Her position on the bed or chair would change throughout the day. Most remarkably, her outfit would change too. One morning her lace dress was blue instead of white. The next day, a pretty velvet frock Natalie didn't recognize. And late at night, Natalie heard soft whispers and giggles she couldn't attribute to her imagination. Natalie decided to test her theory. Before leaving for school, she addressed Clara, who was propped on a chair. "Clara, if you really are alive, please wear the purple dress in the wardrobe when I get home." All day the possibility distracted Natalie from her schoolwork. The final bell couldn't come fast enough. She raced home, threw open her bedroom door, and there was Clara sitting in the purple dress. Natalie clapped with glee. She wasn't just pretending or imagining things. Clara was her living doll friend. That night at dinner, Natalie could barely contain her excitement. "Clara is magic," she announced. "She can move and change her clothes when I'm not home. I think she might even talk if I listen closely enough." Natalie's parents exchanged a look. "That's quite an imagination," her mother said with an amused smile. Natalie frowned. "It's not imagination. I can prove Clara is alive." Her parents just nodded politely while Natalie resolved to make them understand somehow. She knew in her heart her new friend was special. Chapter 4. A few nights later, Natalie was startled awake by a loud thump. She sat up in the dark looking around her moonlit room, but everything seemed still. Thinking she had imagined the noise, Natalie lay back down and closed her eyes. She was just drifting off when she heard the patter of small footsteps. The sound moved from the end of her bed toward the open bedroom door. Frozen with fear, Natalie peered into the darkness until she made out a small silhouette in the doorway. "Clara," she whispered in disbelief. The little figure didn't move. Mustering her courage, Natalie flicked on the bedside lamp. Light flooded the room, revealing it was empty. Clara sat motionless on the shelf. Natalie let out a relieved sigh. Just a nightmare. She turned off the light and snuggled under her covers, figuring her imagination had run wild. As her room returned to darkness, Natalie heard the strange footsteps again moving toward the door. Paralyzed by fear, she repeated to herself it was just a bad dream. But the footsteps kept approaching until Natalie felt the brush of something against her blanket at the foot of the bed. She screeched and turned the light on again. Natalie expected to see Clara standing there, but again, no one was present. "Who's there?" Natalie yelled, tears pooling in her eyes. No answer came. Exhausted and confused, she left the light on until morning. At breakfast, Natalie described the fright to her parents. "It was Clara walking around my room at night," she insisted. Her mother gently explained it was likely just a nightmare. But a seed of doubt formed in Natalie's mind. What if her new friend wasn't so friendly after all? Chapter 5. The disturbing midnight encounter stayed on Natalie's mind over the next week. She decided to lock Clara in the closet at bedtime just to feel safer. Late one Saturday afternoon, the doorbell rang. Natalie opened the front door to see Grandma on the porch holding a plate of cookies. "Grandma." Natalie hugged her tightly. "Hello, dear. I made treats for my favorite granddaughter." They sat chatting at the kitchen table while Natalie described her week at school. She decided not to mention her unsettling experiences with Clara. As Grandma stood up to leave, she noticed her shoelace was untied. Bending over, she didn't see Clara lying in the hallway. Grandma tripped over the doll, tumbling down hard on the wood floor. Hearing the commotion, Natalie's mom came running from the living room. "Are you okay?" she asked, helping Grandma to her feet. "Oh dear, just a little bruised and shaken," Grandma replied. "I must have tripped over Natalie's doll." Natalie stood frozen, staring at Clara. She was certain the doll had been sitting on the kitchen counter just minutes before. There was no way she could have ended up under Grandma's feet unless someone moved her there. Natalie shivered, a dark thought gripping her mind. Had Clara deliberately made Grandma trip? Over the next week, Natalie's unease grew. She decided keeping Clara under lock and key each night wasn't enough. She had to get rid of this doll. Chapter 6. On Saturday morning, Natalie decided it was time to rid herself of Clara. She wrapped the doll in an old blanket and headed out to the curb to place her in the weekly garbage pickup. "I'm sorry, Clara, but I can't be your friend anymore," she whispered sadly before nestling the bundle among waste bins and discarded bags. Just as the garbage truck was about to turn down the street, Natalie's mother came outside. "Oh, Natalie, your grandma just called asking about Clara. She wants to visit her again next week." With a gasp, Natalie sprinted to retrieve the doll from the curb. She plucked Clara from the bin just as the truck approached. Panting but relieved, Natalie stroked Clara's hair, feeling guilty. She had almost discarded her. That night, Natalie tucked Clara into bed and turned out the light with a sigh. "I'm sorry I almost threw you away," she told the doll. "I was being silly." The next morning, Natalie awoke to find Clara missing from the covers. She jumped out of bed and searched everywhere under the furniture, in the closet, but Clara was gone. Natalie sat on the floor and cried. Had someone taken her? Or had she sleepwalked and misplaced Clara somewhere? Her tears eventually slowed as she resolved to search every inch of the house. After looking for hours to no avail, Natalie finally approached her mother, who was reading the newspaper at the kitchen table. "Clara is missing," she announced, trying to stay calm. Her mother lowered the paper. "I'm sure she's around somewhere. Let's look again." They scoured the house together, but Clara had truly vanished. Natalie's bottom lip trembled, holding back more tears. Her mother wrapped her in a big hug. "We'll find her, I promise." But Natalie now feared Clara was gone for good, feeling it was punishment for almost abandoning their friendship. Chapter 7. Natalie spent the next 2 weeks consumed by Clara's disappearance. She posted missing doll flyers around the neighborhood and begged her parents to check dumpsters, thinking she may have sleepwalked the doll outside. At school, Natalie found it hard to focus on classwork. She doodled pictures of Clara in her notebook, words like "Where are you?" and "Please come back," filling the margins. Her teacher, Miss Jenner, became concerned, noticing Natalie seemed constantly distracted and upset. One evening after dinner, Miss Jenner called Natalie's parents. "I wanted to check on Natalie," she explained. "She seems quite distressed lately in class. Is everything all right?" Natalie's mother thanked her for the call and hung up with a sigh. She decided it was time to have a serious talk with her daughter. "Natalie, this doll obsession has gone too far," she said gently. "I know you miss Clara, but she's just an object. It's not healthy to be so attached." Anger and hurt welled up in Natalie. "You don't understand," she cried. "Clara is real. I know she disappeared because she was mad I almost abandoned her. She's out there waiting until I prove I want her back." "Sweetie, dolls don't have feelings," her mom replied. "I know it's hard, but you need to say goodbye to Clara." Natalie shook her head angrily as tears spilled down her cheeks. She had to find Clara, no matter what anyone said. That night, Natalie wept into her pillow until an idea came to her: the antique shop. If her grandmother had bought Clara there, maybe they would know, or even have another look-alike doll. The next morning, Natalie begged her mom to drive to the shop, saying it would provide closure. Her mom agreed, hoping it would help end Natalie's distress. The antique shop's dusty windows and creaking wooden floors felt familiar as Natalie scoured the shelves. Then she saw an antique porcelain doll that looked identical to Clara sitting on a high shelf. Chapter 8. That's her, Natalie shouted, startling the shopkeeper. She pointed to the doll, a perfect match for Clara aside from wearing a red dress instead of blue. The shopkeeper climbed a ladder to retrieve the antique. "You have a keen eye," he said. "This German beast doll dates to the 1910s, a real treasure." He let Natalie hold the uncannily familiar doll. Its smooth porcelain skin and real human hair wig transported her back to that magical week when Clara was first hers. "We'll take it," Natalie's mom said, handing over her credit card before Natalie could protest leaving without Clara. This doll would have to do for now. That night, Natalie sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, brushing the replacement doll's hair. "It's nice to see you again, Clara," she said with a sad smile. She knew this doll held none of the magic of her lost friend, but having a version of Clara back brought some comfort. As Natalie got ready for bed, she felt hopeful this new doll would grow on her. But in the middle of the night, she was startled awake by an angry yell from the hallway. Rushing out of bed, Natalie found her mom standing rigid, staring into Natalie's room with a look of shock. The replacement doll lay smashed on the floor, porcelain shards and tangled hair scattered across the carpet. "What happened?" Natalie cried. Her mother just shook her head in disbelief. They had no explanation for how the doll had violently fallen off the shelf and shattered all on its own. Natalie dissolved into tears, the temporary comfort of having a Clara look-alike destroyed. She scooped up the broken doll, clinging to the fractured pieces that cut into her hands. "It's not her," Natalie sobbed. "It will never be my friend Clara." Her mom pried away the shattered remains and hugged Natalie close, at a loss for how to ease her daughter's suffering. She gently cleaned and bandaged Natalie's bleeding palms, wishing she could make sense of these bizarre occurrences plaguing her child. Chapter 9. The following Saturday, Natalie's mom invited Grandma over, hoping she could provide some insight into her granddaughter's doll dilemma. The three of them sat around the kitchen table over steaming mugs of tea. Natalie's mother recounted the strange events: Clara's disappearing act, Natalie's distress, and the replacement doll smashed beyond repair. "Do you remember anything about the antique dealer you bought Clara from?" she asked Grandma. "We're desperate to understand what's going on." Grandma shook her head sadly. "I'm afraid I don't recall the shop name or owner, but I do have something to share that may provide answers." She turned to Natalie, taking her hands tenderly. "There's a history you should know about your friend Clara. When I purchased her, the dealer mentioned she had previously belonged to a girl your age who lived in this town decades ago." Natalie leaned in, hanging on every word. "Well," Grandma continued, "the girl started behaving strangely, claiming Clara could move and talk. Her parents didn't believe her stories." Natalie gasped. "Just like me." Grandma nodded. Then, the girl became obsessed, insisting Clara was her only friend. One day, Clara went missing. The girl grew terribly distraught. Natalie tensed, experiencing that same despairing feeling of losing Clara. Finally, the girl's parents discovered Clara hidden away, damaged in the attic, Grandma said. They realized their daughter must have harmed the doll in a fit of anger over her imagined friendship. They sent Clara away, afraid of their daughter's deepening obsession. Natalie shivered hearing Clara's eerie history now connected to her own experience. Grandma squeezed her hand reassuringly. Perhaps Clara found her way back to reconnect with you. Natalie's mom looked skeptical, but Natalie now understood Clara was here to revive the friendship she had lost so long ago. Chapter 10. In the weeks following Grandma's revelation, Natalie's conviction strengthened that Clara was a supernatural friend reaching across generations to find her. She knew proving Clara's powers to her skeptical mom would be difficult, but Natalie was determined to try. Late one night as Natalie lay in bed, she made her appeal. "Clara, if you can hear me, I need your help," she whispered into the darkness. "I don't care where you are, just please send me a sign you exist." The following morning, Natalie awoke to find her bedroom window open and curtain fluttering, though her mom insisted it was closed tight the night before. Over breakfast, dishes clattered violently to the floor from the kitchen shelf for no reason. And later at school, the lights in the classroom surged bright, then died, plunging the room into darkness. Each incident made Natalie more confident Clara was reaching out, but she knew these ambiguous events alone wouldn't convince her mom. She needed unequivocal proof. The next evening, after Natalie went to bed, she heard a loud thump. Creeping to her door, she saw a flickering light from downstairs. Natalie gasped, realizing a fire now engulfed the living room curtains. She screamed for her mom, who came running with an extinguisher. Together they put out the spreading flames just before they reached the couch. Her mom stood shocked, staring at the charred curtains. How could this happen? Natalie knew the truth immediately, but feared revealing it would make her sound crazy. This had to have been Clara's supernatural doing. The doll was clearly growing more dangerous, no longer content with just sending signs. Natalie had to take action before someone really got hurt. She decided the only solution was to uncover Clara's origins and purpose. The antique dealer must know critical details if he had relayed her history to Grandma. Natalie planned to sneak away first thing Saturday morning to the shop. She had passed by its dusty storefront before on errands with her mom. The dealer's revelations could provide answers about Clara's powers and help put an end to this haunting. With her course set, Natalie just had to avoid rousing Clara's anger in the meantime. Each bizarre incident had increased her mom's worry and skepticism. One more unexplained fire, levitation, or supernatural message could get Natalie sent away for help. She had to play the part of a normal girl getting over her loss in front of her mom. But inside, Natalie's mind churned, focused on understanding Clara's past and putting a stop to the escalating supernatural events. She just had to make it to Saturday. Chapter 11. Early Saturday morning, Natalie slipped out the back door before her parents awoke. She remembered the way to the antique shop from previous trips around town and headed off on her bicycle, heart racing with anticipation. The shop's windows were dark when Natalie arrived. She walked all around trying every door, but it was firmly closed. Peering inside, Natalie could see cluttered shelves covered in dolls that seemed eerily to stare back at her through the glass. Then she noticed the open sign flipped to closed. Natalie's heart sank, realizing it must be the shopkeeper's day off. Her one chance to uncover Clara's past was ruined. Unless the door in back near the alley showed signs of a break-in long ago. Natalie might be small enough to crawl through the opening. She knew sneaking into a building was terribly naughty, but Natalie was desperate. She had to find answers before someone got seriously injured by Clara's escalating supernatural antics. Approaching the damaged door, Natalie easily shimmied through the wide gap into the storage area. Holding her breath, she crept through a dark corridor between packing crates until she made it into the main shop. It looked just as creepy inside, with dolls crowding every surface. Natalie hesitated, unsure where to begin searching for clues in the endless clutter. She jumped at a loud whirring noise before realizing it was the refrigerator kicking on. Rushing over, Natalie saw folders sticking out of the fridge door. Maybe they held information on the shop's inventory and sales. She quickly flipped through brittle receipts and old Polaroids of antiques until she landed on a bill of sale to her grandmother. This was it. Natalie's hands trembled reading the description. Antique beast doll, 1920s German, excellent condition. Heart pounding, Natalie searched for more, but this single slip provided no details on Clara's history. Crestfallen, she carefully returned the folders to the fridge and crept back outside through the busted door. She pedaled away from the shop in tears, no closer to understanding Clara's origins or purpose. Chapter 12. After the dead end at the antique shop, Natalie decided to try the library next. If she couldn't dig up clues on Clara specifically, perhaps she could research possessed dolls more generally. There had to be information somewhere on their haunted history and supernatural powers. The following Monday after school, Natalie headed straight to the town library. She had always loved the beautiful historic building with its high ceilings, spiral staircases, and the faint smell of aging paper. Now those rooms full of books might reveal insights about her haunted friend. Natalie headed upstairs to the dusty reference section, unsure where to begin. She started scanning the tall shelves and soon became overwhelmed by the packing bodies of scientific journals and intimidating encyclopedia sets. Finally, in a back corner, Natalie noticed a section labeled occult. Her heart leaped, imagining what secrets these books might reveal. She selected the most promising titles: Origins of Possessed Objects, Dolls, and the Spirit World and Haunted Belongings. Settling into a worn leather chair, Natalie dove in, taking copious notes about dolls serving as conduits for spirits, paranormal powers associated with possessed objects, and rituals for destroying the items. Though much of the content was disturbing, she was thrilled to find evidence supporting her belief in Clara. Late afternoon sun filtered through the stained glass windows as Natalie absorbed every morsel of information possible from the occult books. She lost track of time until a passing librarian announced the building would soon close. Clutching her spiral notebook, Natalie checked out the books and pedaled home, where she hid them in her closet. She stayed up late reading by flashlight under her blanket. The texts may not have revealed Clara's particular origins, but they confirmed Natalie was dealing with very real supernatural forces. She was now armed with valuable insights to end Clara's haunting. Chapter 13. Over the next week, Natalie spent every free moment poring over the library books hidden under her bed. Her class notes grew jumbled and distracted, but Natalie didn't care. She was going to solve the Clara mystery using this newfound knowledge. Late one night, Natalie traced ritual sigils from a book's page onto her bedroom floor. She gathered acorns and lit tea candles, forming a circle, whispering the incantations she had memorized. "Clara, reveal yourself," she commanded. "You cannot hide from me." A loud bang at the door made Natalie jump. She blew out the candles as her angry mother burst in. "Just what do you think you're doing?" she demanded, seeing the strange symbols and makeshift altar. Natalie stammered, unable to explain her occult experiment. Her mom snatched away the library books and candle stubs. "I've had enough of this doll obsession. First the fires, now dabbling in witchcraft." Her voice quivered with worry for her daughter spiraling out of control. "You leave me no choice but to get you professional help." Natalie sobbed as her mom gathered up the occult items. She knew it sounded absurd, but she had to make her understand. "Clara is haunting me," Natalie insisted. "I was trying to make contact and banish her spirit. Please, you have to believe me." But her mom just shook her head sadly. "This dull fantasy has gone too far. No more talk of Clara." She kissed Natalie goodnight and shut off the lights with a heavy heart, unable to comprehend her daughter's turmoil. Natalie curled up weeping, feeling utterly alone and misunderstood. Why couldn't anyone else see Clara's powers? She had to take more drastic action before the haunting consumed her. Chapter 14. The next morning was tense and silent as Natalie picked at her pancakes, while her parents kept exchanging worried looks. She dreaded what they might be planning after last night's occult incident. When breakfast ended, her mom finally spoke up. "Your father and I have made a decision. We believe it's best you go stay at Grandma's for a little while." Natalie's head shot up. "You're sending me away," she cried. "Just temporarily, to give you a change of environment," her dad said gently. "Some distance might help with whatever you're going through." Natalie wanted to scream that no distance could help with a supernatural haunting. But she knew arguing was useless. Her fate was sealed. After packing her bags, Natalie endured the silent car ride to Grandma's house on the edge of town. Her mom walked her inside, gave Grandma instructions to keep Natalie from any occult books or ritual paraphernalia, and forced an awkward goodbye hug. The first couple days at Grandma's dragged by. With no clues left to follow, no way to research Clara further, Natalie felt utterly powerless. Most hurtful was thinking her own family now saw her as deranged. On the third morning, Natalie decided she needed fresh air to clear her head. She decided to explore Grandma's rambling Victorian house and crept up to the attic she had never been allowed to visit before. Natalie coughed in the dusty air as she scanned the shadowy eaves. She noticed an antique dollhouse and boxes of old toys. Then, her breath caught in her throat. Tucked away in a far corner was Clara. Chapter 15. Natalie cautiously approached the doll, as if expecting her to vanish or come to life. But Clara remained motionless as Natalie reached out with trembling hands to touch her. It was unmistakably Natalie's doll, the same beast skin, painted hair, lace dress. But how had Clara turned up in this attic? Footsteps on the stairs made Natalie whip around. Grandma appeared, looking upset to find her. "I see you discovered her," Grandma said sadly. "I hope to spare you any more pain over that doll." "You knew Clara was here?" Natalie couldn't grasp it. "Please, tell me what's going on." Grandma gestured for them to sit atop an old trunk. She took Natalie's hands in hers. "After your parents sent you here, your mother called distraught," she began. "She asked me to check my attic for any sign of Clara. She feared you had spirited the doll away and hidden her here." Natalie listened in disbelief as Grandma continued. "I remembered this look-alike doll packed away up here from when your mother was a child. She had an imaginary friend doll too that became unhealthy, so I found this Clara to put your mother's mind at ease." Natalie's head spun. "That can't be true." Grandma turned Natalie's palm up, revealing faint red scratches. "Oh, sweetie, I know you want Clara to be real, but look what that belief has done to you." Seeing the self-inflicted wounds, Natalie finally grasped the truth. There never was a haunted Clara. There were just childhood games and longings that had spiraled out of control. Now fully understanding, Natalie dissolved into her grandmother's arms. The doll obsession had ended, but healing would take time. Chapter 16. The weeks following Natalie's revelation were a period of emotional recovery. She started meeting with a therapist, Dr. Allen, who helped her work through why she had become so obsessed with Clara. In their sessions, Natalie opened up about her isolation and struggles to connect with peers. "I realize now Clara represented the friendship I desperately wanted but couldn't find in real life," Natalie told Dr. Allen. "I needed an escape from loneliness." He helped Natalie brainstorm ways she could nurture her mental health moving forward. Natalie decided to join an art class at the community center where she could express her feelings creatively. To build real friendships, she vowed to approach classmates she normally avoided. During lunch one day, she gathered her courage and asked to join a group of girls at their table. They said yes. Natalie also continued spending time at Grandma's house on weekends. They would cook together, go on long walks, and talk openly about Natalie's experiences. It felt good to bond with family as she healed. One sunny Saturday, Grandma suggested a fun outing to take Natalie's mind off the lingering emotions. "Let's head to the carnival downtown," she said with a smile. "We can ride the Ferris wheel and get candy apples." Natalie agreed happily, ready to enjoy the day. But as Grandma pulled into the crowded parking lot, Natalie froze. Across the street was the antique shop where this had all began. Seeing Natalie's expression, Grandma quickly turned the car around to head home. Though progress was being made, remnants of the trauma still lingered. Recovery would take time, but Natalie was on the right path. Chapter 17. Happy birthday to you. Natalie blew out the 9 candles on her cake as friends and family clapped. She felt so grateful looking around the room at the people who loved her. After presents and cake, the guests headed home until only Grandma remained. She handed Natalie a small gift-wrapped box. "Just something to commemorate your special day," Grandma said warmly. Natalie carefully tore off the paper and opened the box. Inside was a beautiful bracelet with her name spelled out in glittering beads. "I love it," Natalie cried, hugging Grandma tightly. "Turn it over," Grandma said. Natalie flipped the bracelet and saw an inscription on the back, "You are stronger than you know." Natalie's eyes welled up, reading the message. Grandma clasped her hand tenderly. "I wanted you to have a reminder. Never forget all you overcame this past year." Wiping away happy tears, Natalie promised she wouldn't forget. The haunting memories would always linger, but were now outshined by the light within herself. Natalie decided to end her special day with self-care. She drew a bath surrounded by fragrant candles and slipped on an eye mask while soaking in the tub. Afterwards, she curled up in cozy pajamas and wrote in her journal, reflecting on this poignant birthday. Later, as Natalie lay in bed, she thought about all she had learned. Possessions could never fulfill her needs. True friends would support her for who she was inside. And most of all, even her darkest times held invaluable lessons if she looked for the light. Natalie fell asleep peacefully, knowing the challenging year behind her had gifted so much wisdom she would carry all her life. Chapter 18. On a crisp Saturday morning, Natalie joined her parents for a hike through the state park outside town. She had noticed their relationship growing closer since her doll trauma ended. They now made efforts to connect as a family, like this outdoor excursion. As the trail wound through the colorful autumn landscape, Natalie's father pointed out birds and squirrels to her. She inhaled the fresh air, feeling at peace surrounded by nature's beauty. When they came across a clearing, her parents suddenly stopped and waved Natalie over. "Your mom and I want you to have something," her dad said, handing Natalie a gift bag. Natalie opened it eagerly and pulled out a camera, the one she had admired for months at the photography shop in town. "Now you can capture everything you see on our adventures," her mom said, giving Natalie a squeeze. Thrilled, Natalie immediately started snapping photos. She zoomed in on a caterpillar inching along a branch. She captured fiery red maple leaves fluttering down. And of course, she took smiling shots of her parents. Further along the trail, the family came across a deer. Natalie cautiously moved closer and knelt down to get the perfect picture. Seeing the graceful creature up close through her new camera lens made Natalie's heart swell with joy. On the hike back, Natalie reflected on how far they had all come. The doll ordeal had brought them closer, helping her parents understand her better. And now their family bond had blossomed, just like the lovely nature scenes she was capturing with her wonderful new camera. Chapter 19. Natalie woke one Saturday morning feeling unsettled without knowing why. Then she realized it had been 1 year today since receiving Clara as a gift. The memories came flooding back, unwrapping that fateful present, believing the doll was her living friend, and descending into a dangerous obsession. Natalie shuddered, remembering the months of anguish. Needing fresh air, she decided to walk to town. But everywhere Natalie went, she encountered ghosts of the past year's turmoil. The coffee shop where she had brought Clara daily, the library where she researched the occult, and looming down the block, the antique store linked to her obsession start. Natalie quickened her pace, willing herself not to look at that foreboding shop front. But just before passing it, something in the window display caught her eye. There, dressed in a frilly new outfit, was a porcelain antique doll that looked identical to Clara. Natalie stood frozen, unsure if she was imagining it. But the painted features undeniably mimicked her haunted friend. Deep in her mind, Natalie felt Clara's presence re-emerging. "No, stop it," Natalie commanded herself. She forced her feet to keep moving down the street. You know dolls can't really be alive. But convincing herself was difficult. The timing felt sinister, Clara resurfacing a year to the day she entered Natalie's life. Natalie quickened her pace almost to a run. She had come too far in her recovery to slide backward. Fleeing the scene, Natalie resolved it was just a disturbing coincidence. She couldn't let it unravel her progress. Arriving home breathless, Natalie decided talk therapy was best right now. She called Dr. Allen, grateful when he could fit her in that very afternoon. She had faced Clara once before and could do it again. Chapter 20. Truth or Dare? Natalie giggled with her friends at a slumber party a few weeks later. She was thrilled to finally be included by girls at school. Sleepovers used to represent her isolation, but now Natalie belonged. "Dare," she replied boldly. Her friend Megan dared Natalie to prank call their history teacher. The girls collapsed in laughter hearing his confusion on the other line. Over pizza and popcorn, the friends bonded more. Natalie felt so comfortable opening up. "Hey, can I share something personal?" she asked. The girls nodded, eager to listen. Natalie took a deep breath and told them all about her haunting ordeal with Clara. She described believing the doll was her friend, the bizarre supernatural events, and finally realizing it was just a trauma-fueled fantasy. "Whoa," said Megan when the story ended. "I never knew you went through all that. It must have been so hard." Natalie nodded. "I was in a really lonely place, but I'm just so glad to have real friendships now." The girls appreciatively squeezed Natalie's hands. "Well, Clara was a jerk and we would never act like her," declared her friend Lisa, making everyone laugh. Natalie smiled, feeling surrounded by unconditional support. She even felt comfortable enough to bring out the old photos of Clara that she kept hidden away. Being able to share that part of herself with friends was hugely cathartic. The next morning, Natalie's mom picked her up from the fun sleepover. "So how was it?" she asked brightly, hoping Natalie had enjoyed herself. "It was amazing," Natalie replied. "We stayed up late talking and joking, and I told them all about Clara." Her mom raised her eyebrows, but Natalie quickly put her concerns at ease. "Don't worry, it felt great to share it all. They were really supportive about what happened." Natalie grinned, grateful to find her voice again, and closed the book on the heavy shadows of her past. Clara's memory could finally fade into the light. Chapter 21. On a sunny April morning, Natalie's family gathered around the breakfast table. Her dad kept checking his phone until he finally cleared his throat to make an announcement. "Kids, your mother and I have some exciting news," he said, smiling over at Natalie's mom. "We're going to have a new baby joining our family." Natalie gasped, her hands flying to her face in happy shock. Her little brother Ethan started bouncing in his chair chanting, "I'm getting a sister." Laughing, Natalie's parents explained it was too soon to know the baby's gender, but they would find out at the upcoming ultrasound. The family shared hugs and made plans for preparing the new nursery. Later that day, Natalie sat on her bed, letting the news truly sink in. A tiny brother or sister for her to love and help care for. It was a dream come true. But along with the excitement, she felt a twinge of uncertainty. How would a new baby impact her now stable family dynamic? Sensing her mood, Natalie's mom came in, and they had a heart-to-heart. Natalie confessed her small worries about the coming change. "Sweetie, I understand your nerves," her mom said gently. "But you'll always be just as special and loved with a little one in our home. Think of the fun you'll have helping out." Natalie nodded, feeling reassured by her mom's wisdom. She realized babies brought families together in even deeper ways. With her doll demons defeated, Natalie now felt truly ready to embrace this new chapter full of life and joy. The coming months were filled with eager anticipation. Natalie helped prepare the nursery, talking and singing to her sibling-to-be while she painted the walls. This baby would know nothing but warmth and light. Chapter 22. The months flew by until Natalie found herself pacing the hospital waiting room with her family. After many long hours, at last the delivery room doors swung open. "Come meet your new baby sister," the nurse announced happily. Natalie squeezed her mom's hand, overjoyed. They entered the room where Natalie's beaming parents cradled a tiny pink bundle. Natalie tiptoed closer to see her sister's perfect nose and rosebud lips for the first time. "Meet baby Lily," her mom said softly, tears of joy glistening. Lily's tiny fingers grasped Natalie's outstretched hand. An overwhelming love flooded Natalie's heart. In the days after bringing Lily home, Natalie eagerly helped care for her. She rocked Lily to sleep, read her stories, and showed her the flowering garden outside the window. One sunny morning, Natalie carried Lily on a walk through the neighborhood. She paused as they approached the antique shop down the street, the site of so much past pain. Natalie gazed at her baby sister's innocent face. How could she have ever believed a doll could show real friendship? Lily was the embodiment of pure love. Drawing a deep breath, Natalie continued walking confidently past the shop without a second glance. That damaging part of her story was firmly in the past now that she knew the light of true unconditional love. With Lily's arrival, Natalie saw her family coming even closer together. Meals and playtimes were filled with laughter and joyful chaos. And at night, Lily would drift off to sleep in Natalie's arms as she hummed lullabies. Natalie smiled down at her sleeping baby sister, heart brimming with gratitude. The haunting memories from that fateful gift long ago had led to this precious new beginning. The end.